Good afternoon and welcome to Missing Briefs, where we unveil the untold business stories of lawyers, their triumphs and their trials. I'm Dominic Grew, the founder and owner of Elevate Business Coaching, and with me today is
Bob Furlong, financial advisor at the Bullfinch Group.
Missing Briefs. So what's it all about? Well, the objective of this recording is to explore and narrate the compelling stories or briefs of lawyers who have experienced significant challenges and successes in the business of law. We talk about what their gap was, what were they missing, what do they wish that they'd known. And it's our pleasure to welcome today Brad Pinta. Brad is the founder and owner of PINTA Law Group, a Braintree, Massachusetts-based law practice with an emphasis on business and commercial litigation. Brad, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here today. And now I've learned very quickly that I have to be careful not to embarrass myself. But go ahead.
I think you'll do great. So Brad, you have a really interesting story. You work in a very specific area of the law. So let's get started by going back to the beginning a bit, okay? When was it in your life that you decided to become an attorney? What was where were you? What brought this about?
I didn't want to be an attorney. How's that? My late father was a very accomplished lawyer, Jewish lawyer in the community. And unfortunately, he got cancer when he was in his 40s. And he died when he was 50 years old. And I was the oldest son in a Jewish family, and the oldest son would come in and take over the law firm. And so I went to law school, and unfortunately, he actually died the day I took the bar exam. So to talk about how, one of my clients once said to me once, you grew up very quickly because I had to come in and take over a bad situation. And that's how it started. And he had an interesting practice. He had a practice that was going from tort to business, and he was representing at the time about 8 or 9 auto dealerships doing defense work. And I was smart enough with the business background I had from Boston College to say, I can capitalize on this. And so I built that very quickly into a defense firm for car dealers. This was before Lemon Law, and this is in the early 80s. So at one point I had 17 different car dealers that I was doing defense work. I did all the Claire International car cases. I was corporate counsel to Rodman Ford for 40 years before Don Rodman died 6-7 years ago. So I developed an expertise. And then I was smart enough to wake up one day and say, I'm not good enough at what I do. So I actually left that firm, took the cases, went to a competing firm that did other car stuff. And then from there, I was there for a couple of years. Then I went to another firm, and that firm I was doing defense work. So I wound up doing AIG panel defense work for E&O stuff. So I wound up doing a legal malpractice defense for about 15 years. So I became a pretty accomplished trial lawyer. But I always maintained my business cases. I always had my business background. And so what happened was I developed a pretty good trial practice. And that combined with the business practice that I learned from the Rodman dealerships, I put those together. Now here I am. There probably isn't another lawyer in the South Shore that's tried 200 cases like I have, that has a business background and a trial background to put it together. And that's the expertise. So I represent small businesses, small business owners, and I can pretty much take a look at their problems and figure out how to solve them because I have both this background, the business litigation and the business background together with a corporate background that I learned from doing all the Rodman stuff. So I'm pretty unique. And knock on wood, I'm very, very lucky that I've have this going on here now. And thanks to provisors, my goodness, the cases, it's 2 or 3 calls a day. What do I do with this? Where do I bring this? What do I do? And I generally have an answer pretty quick. So it's good. It's fun.
That's great. I think you may have answered my second question already.
Probably, yeah.
I was going to say, why did you choose this area of the law? But it seems to be that the business background that you had from undergrad paired with all the experience you had working with these businesses and on the defense side. What now under your current PINTA Law Group? What was the nuance there when as you decided to create that formation? What was there something different over your last iteration?
Well, we wound up here in the South Shore.
Yeah.
And there's maybe one or two other lawyers around here who have the litigation experience. I mean, I've got 200 cases under my belt tried.
Yeah.
So very few people have that expertise with the corporate stuff. So I get a lot of cases referred to me by other lawyers to do transactional stuff because about half my practice is, represent me buying and selling my business, stock disputes, stock transfers, that kind of stuff. And some of them are in litigation, some I keep out of litigation. If I try now at this point, years ago I used to try one or two cases a month. Now it's maybe one or two cases a year because of the sophistication of the mediators involved and the costs of litigation. But if I have to try a case, it's usually because someone on the other side hasn't taken out their calculator and figured out doesn't make any sense. As you know, if you're a business litigator, there's a cost factor here. What are we going to do? So I try to play those angles and get my client the best deal I can. And I always tell clients, I've got some really great suits, but if you're looking at me wearing a fancy suit in a courtroom, it's costing you way too much money.
I'm sure that resonates. It's interesting, Brad. We've known each other, for several years, but I'd never heard that whole story about your father. And
I don't think I remember it either, Don. That's kind of
so that's it's so interesting. So I knew about the Rodman, the time that you'd spent there. So there's kind of two parts of your career, but I want to talk and specifically hone in on when you sure. made the decision you were going to start your own law firm. You're going to leave the Rodman Group. You're going to start your own firm.
I was in a courtroom. I was easy. I was standing in a courtroom in Suffolk Superior Court. It was maybe 1983 or 84, somewhere around that. And those days, everything was argued. Everything was orally argued. You didn't submit things on briefs, and there was no Zoom or anything like that. And they used to have the really good, important, difficult cases were argued first. And then the sort of semis were second, and the lawyers like me that were the neophytes handling, arguing too many interrogatories or something like that. That was third call. And I remember this. I was watching a guy, and he was in his 40s or 50s, well-dressed, standing there, and he had all the time in the world arguing a business case. And I said, you know something? I don't want to argue these stupid divorce cases. I don't want to do the collection cases. I want to do business litigation. That's my skill set. And I actually left that firm, went to a firm in Boston. I took every MCLE course that I could find on trial work, how to try cases, how to evidence, what's rulings, you name it, I took it. And I figured I'm going to educate myself, and in 2 years, I'm going to get really good at this. And I wound up in partners with guys that had connections to AIG. So I was doing AIG in Zurich, which took over home. I was doing their defense work, legal malpractice defense work. So I got cutting edge experience in terms of trying cases. I wound up trying a case in Chicago. I tried a couple of cases in Florida. I wound up really developing that together with my corporate background. So it's come a long way. And now I find it fascinating. How do I get there? But I remember standing, I don't know who the guy was, but I remember watching him and saying it was like an epiphany. That's what I want to do.
That's what I want to be.
Yeah.
So I know that today it's PINTA Law, but what were some of the key challenges that you faced when you kind of started your law practice? And I know there's been a bit of a migration to becoming PINTA Law, but when you think back on like going out on your own, what are the key challenges for you when you look back on it?
I was unfortunate that provisors came along because you can't know everything. And you need people to help you. Mm-hmm. And almost every one of my cases that comes in, I use another provisor member to help me with something. And I tell people, because I'm a group leader of the Braintree Group, and we're going on 12 years now. And I always start my meetings, my provisor meetings, with the language. Look, everyone in this room is a resource for me. Everyone in this room helps me be a better lawyer, and I'm vice versa to you. It's all about the resources. And my goodness, a few years ago when my longtime best friend and business partner died, I was in a mess. What do I do? And his widow decided that she is entitled to all the insurance money. And, here I go. Yeah. Banks foreclosing, landlords saying what's going on. I used 14 different provisor members. in the course of the following year to get myself out of that mess and walk away with, recovered most of the sums. If it wasn't for provisors, I remember that first Monday morning, I made 3 phone calls to different provisor members. Take a look at this agreement. Where is the hole? How are they going to come after me? What's going on? Who can do that? Who has those resources? But to me, that's the epitome of what a provisors is really all about.
Yeah. So it's interesting, just in the space of our conversation, you've kind of highlighted 2 situations in your life, your career, where something has happened that's thrown you in at the deep end with serious stuff to help resolve quickly. And kind of what you have found is leveraging other people's talents, making sure that you're not supposed to be the expert in everything, has kind of served you well, right? When you look back on all the challenges that you've had as an attorney and as a business owner as well.
It's funny. Even sometimes I remember trying a few cases 10, 12 years ago. And no matter what the situation, thank God it hasn't been health, but no matter what the situation is, something always happens. I've been in trials, and sometimes it's day 2 of a 5-day trial. Something happens. And the trick is to get your head out of the clouds and figure out, how do I capitalize on that? And that stands true for business litigation, it's true for business negotiation.
Right.
You have to find and wait. You have to wait for it and then find that hole, and then use your expertise to bring it in. And all good. I don't know if I learned it from representing Don Rodman all those years or just through my own experience. And it's to the point now, I'll go into a hearing knowing that that the next day's hearing is going to be difficult, but something will open. It always does. Then you got to drive in through that door and figure out how to bring it in for your client. That's my job. My job is to create finality. That's my job as a business litigator. Create finality. Get my client out of the mess that they're in. And sometimes the numbers aren't great. I just settled a case last week, very difficult case, and my client did not come out with a great result, but he came out better. As the mediator said, he did better than if we went to trial. He came out better than it could have been, so we walked away. But isn't that what business is all about? He now can play the day,
Yeah. So here's a question, and it's really, I'm thinking here about other folks that are attorneys. Maybe they're thinking about starting their own practice. Maybe they have already started their own practice and they're trying to get some wisdom, and they see Brad Pinta here, right? And it's, what can I learn from Brad? So this question is really about the business, owning a law firm as your own business, right? And the question is, kind of knowing what you now know, what would you have done differently when it comes to kind of, starting your own firm, building your own firm, managing your own firm? What would you have done differently?
I actually wish I had sort of read the memo you sent out the other day. Is my law firm saleable? You sent this out, Don. It was on LinkedIn, and it was pretty good. I wish I had read that 20 years ago.
Yeah.
The problem, I don't consider a problem. I mean, the situation I'm now in is that I'm going to say one lawyer law firm. I've got one person working for me. I'm hiring another one, so I'll be a 3-person law firm.
Yeah.
Sell that. The problem with the law firm, and Dom, you know this better than anyone, can you sell that practice? I tried to merge it last year. I couldn't get the numbers to work. It's because people want me. People want me to try that case. People want me to do the closing.
Yeah.
And unless you're in a bigger firm with bigger accounts, it's a different animal. I've got sort of privately owned clients on the South Shore, and I don't think I could sell the practice, so to speak. And that's what would I have done differently? Maybe I would have tried a different path, sort of following the wisdom of that article. But it's probably too late to do that now. So I'm going to capitalize on what I got, and thank God I'm fortunate what I have, and health-wise and so forth. Fortunate, but you look back, and you got to look back and think you would have done things a little differently.
So if you were talking to an attorney in their 30s or 40s, you might say to them, consider what your path is and how your exit might be.
Right.
Because there'll be an exit at some point, right?
Right. Yeah, the exit. And how, guys like me, was I ever thinking the exit? I was thinking survival. I was thinking, father died. What am I going to do is save this? When I went to the next firm, and I remember my ex-wife used to say, "Oh, you're on to another firm." It was always a change that was better.
Right.
I looked at it as a creative change. But maybe I was never a fit to work in a big firm and then something like that because I'm too creative. But that's life. That's the path that I've got, and I'm not regretting it. But to your point, what I would have done different, if I could have fitted to that mold, maybe that's what I should have done. But I don't know if it ever would have fit.
But
But
there's a lot that has to line up, and everybody's different in terms of what they want and need from their work and control and freedom, all that good stuff.
yeah, you know more about that than I do, Dom, and you and I've talked about it a couple of
Yeah.
times. How did I get on this path? I'm here, but grass is always greener.
Right.
I talked to all these other lawyer friends of mine that are in big firms. They say, "I wish I could do what you're doing."
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Well, you mentioned before that so much of your business comes from other attorneys. Attorneys that are smart are live in a practice that's narrow, an area where they specialize, and they refer the rest of the business out. So when someone is in the position to refer business to you, what's the best way for them to do so? How are they best to introduce you to prospective clients?
I like when someone calls me, and it happens all the time, to identify the problem. I don't like to pick up the phone and talk to either a lawyer or even their prospective client unless I have documents in front of me so I know what I'm talking about. I don't like this idea of cold call because we're all too busy, and I don't like to play guesswork. So I'll have a lawyer call me and say, "I got this problem with this deed." And I'll say, "Send it to me." It's probably a case I've tried 5 times. Let me see it. And let me make a few calls on it. So at least at least I'm ahead of the curve. I might not get the case, but at least when I open my mouth, I'm talking about something that makes sense. And it's not this esoteric, subjective stuff. I like to give straight answers based on honest situations. And I think that goes a long way. And if someone hires me, great. If they don't, but at least they know what they're getting and I know what I'm climbing into.
Right. So they should reach out to you, have a brief conversation, see if it's a fit, give you enough information to know how to go to next steps. That's smart.
Send me a document if there's, I don't even, people call all the time here. Can we come in for a meeting? I said, send me the documents first.
Right.
Because I don't have the time to waste. And I can look at it, at this point, after doing this for 44 years, I can look at a document, or if a case is pending, I can pull up the docket sheet and we'll pull it up. We'll spend an hour before somebody comes in my office on a pending case they want me to take over. I'll spend an hour on my own time just figuring this case out, what's going on. And at this point, if I can't figure it out before that person walks in the door, there's something wrong, and at this point, I don't want to get involved in something that I don't want to be involved with either.
Right.
You want to not pick and choose, but you want to get stuff that you could help someone and it's going to be profitable. So you got to do your homework first. And it's like that in all the cases. Don, you the same way. Bob, you're the same way in your business. You don't want to, at this point in your life, you don't climb into everything. If I take one every 6 or 7 cases that come in here, and that's a lot, and because the other's being sent out, or I tell someone you don't have anything here that's worthwhile. Selective is important at this point.
And, given that somebody's inspired enough to want to reach out to you, having seen, this recording, what's the best way to contact you?
Take a look at my website. Take a look at the testimonials on there, because to me, those are clients that I did a good job with. Take a look at those testimonials, and they're all different types. There are deals where I've litigated cases. There's deals where I've bought and sold businesses, all types of stuff. Take a look at that, and you can see the wide range of experience that I have. And if you own a business, to me, the highest compliment is when a lawyer on the other side of a case that I've tried and won, or if a business owner on the other side of a deal that I was on calls me and wants me to represent them now. To me, that's the high compliment, and it happens. Knock on wood. To me, that's the honor. Like, wow, what are you hiring me for? No, you're on the other side. We want you on our side. And it's great. It's good. But like I said, I've earned my stripes, I guess. This has been going on for a lot of years. But I'm very fortunate to be at this point. I thank my lucky stars every day that I'm at this point and I can, bill out hours and do this work. And I complain sometimes, but guess what? Don't we all?
Yeah. So Brad, thanks for spending time with Bob and myself today. You know,
Sure.
we learned a lot, and you have earned your stripes, and you know the questions to ask, and that really comes through in the discussion that we've had today. For those listening, you've been listening to Missing Briefs, where we unveil the untold business stories of lawyers, their triumphs and their trials. If you have an interesting story to tell, perhaps about your own triumphs or trials of owning your own law firm, or perhaps you know someone else that has an interesting story, please get in touch with us. I'm Dominic Grew.
And I'm Bob Furlong.
Until we meet again.
Thank you. Thank you very much.